in America. I want to be around white people. I'm sorry, man.
I
White
have a good
affluent.
question. I have a good question for you, Hannah. Do you identify with whites? I kind of heard that. And why do you identify
Well,
more with whites?
I identify with whites because whites are in this time period they are very affluent. Their elites have done incredible things in the grand scheme of humanity. I mean, the quantum computer, rovers on Mars. Hear me, you ask me a question, Risky. I mean, think about what these people have done just in the last 25 years. Forget the past 100, 200 years. Forget the car and all the other stuff these people invented. These people have done incredible things, man. So I want to identify with the people who are winning. Now, of course, I'm black, but hey, man, white people are incredible people. You know, in July, I'm going to be celebrating White History Month. So I hope you guys come over for that. Go ahead, Risky.
So real quick, I'm gonna call you a windshield wiper to your face because as Chief like sit there and say windshield wiper and double dutching. You just literally called out maybe 10 or 15 affluent blacks
I did.
a couple minutes ago. And now you're saying you want to be part of the elite that have so much affluence and so much success. But you just
Yeah.
called out maybe 30 or 45 minutes ago about all these other blacks that had all this success
Yeah.
outside of
Yeah.
sports and rapping. So which one is it?
Yeah.
'Cause you can't talk out both
Yeah.
sides of your mouth because you lose
Well, I
credibility.
mean, well, I mean, listen, I can do what I want to do, really, but
You
let's
can.
be
But
honest.
you're losing
Let's be honest.
credibility.
Let's
Nice
be
things up
honest.
to you.
We like to discredit white people. I give white people credit. If it wasn't for white people, I wouldn't have Wi-Fi. I wouldn't have the internet. I wouldn't have a car. I wouldn't have any of this advanced technology. Let's be honest. And to down and we and these people now, they're so downtrodden in society now that they can't even be proud to be white anymore. And I think that's shameful now. We can't even be proudful to be Americans anymore. Forget just white people, just black Americans can't even be proudful to be Americans because we're letting the weak people dominate now. So we got to get back. So I tell white people on my panel, man, embrace your whiteness. And I tell people who are American, embrace their Americanness. Don't let these. I got a lot of foreigners who call into my channel. They got every little opinion about America, and I got to constantly remind them, "Hey, man, we're superior. All it takes is a drone or two. You catch my drift? Don't watch your mouth. Watch your mouth, because it takes a drone or two. Just watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. Go ahead. Go ahead, Risky.
Hey, Al. Yeah, I think she good. Alex, did you want to comment on this?
Yes. So, in mass, do people want to live around black people if they don't have to? The answer is no, sadly. I love Asia's point in talking about class and the social status of things. But the reality is, and going back to my original point about black culture and how we are perceived, black people in America are not perceived to have class. Outside of us, we know better because, if you grew up around black people, you understand how hospitable we can be and all of the great things about us. But when people who don't know us, outside looking in, they perceive us to be a particular type of way. We're going to be crazy neighbors. We're going to have the wild parties. We're going to be having all these people hanging outside in the yard and doing all of those things. So that goes back to it, to my original point about culture and how black Americans are seen in this country. People do not want to live around us. When they see black people coming in the neighborhood, up the property value no went down. That's a thing. People have those conversations. Now, for me personally, I don't have an issue living around black people. I prefer a mixed area more than anything because I don't want all of one too many things. I don't want to be around all white people, all black people, all Hispanic people. I don't want that. I want a mix of different people to live around. But more importantly, I want to live around people who have some act right. So whether you are black, brown, whatever it is, I want you to have some act right. I don't got time. I'm past that phase in my life where I want the music blaring at whatever this time of night. I'm past that phase in my life. But I think as you accumulate more money, as you grow and you mature, and as your status changes, you have the ability to move into different spaces. And unfortunately, in those spaces for a lot of people, and I can't speak outside the GMB area because there are a lot of African black areas, there are less black people there.
Do you think the partying stops as people get money?
I don't think it necessarily stops. I think that people tend to be more, in my viewpoint, I think people tend to be a little bit more cautious when they move into certain places. So I feel like when Black people move into white spaces, I feel like we want to assimilate to them. Well, we don't want to being that we're the only Black people in the neighborhood, we don't want to disturb these good white folks. We want to make sure that we are not making them uncomfortable when we get into their spaces. So we tend to want to behave because we don't want them to have the perception, and we do not want to feed into the stereotype that we are loud, obnoxious, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so you deem our conduct as misbehaving.
I think that's how people view us, yes, as a whole.
What about you?
Do I view Black people as?
Yeah, you think like I just DJ'd 4 events at $4 million homes owned by Black people, and it was loud party, and we was drinking and whatever the case, having fun. Is that misbehaving? Because I noticed you said we behave when we get around white folks.
I don't think that's misbehaving if it's once in a while. I think the issue is deemed as misbehaving when it's something that's consistent. Are you consistently throwing these wild, lavish parties, and is it considerate to your other neighbors around? So having something once in a while is not comparable to, as people feel that we are always playing our music outside, we're always having gatherings, all these people are always there. I think there's one-off situations, and I think there's consistent situations. But I don't think as a whole, in my experience, that Black people, again, from where I am, have been bad neighbors, and I don't have an issue in living around Black people. I much rather, if I had to choose, I'd rather live around Black people over white people.
You would, if you had to choose?
I would press white people, yeah.
Okay. But you do still feel that the Jamaican lady was justified in tearing down Black people?
I feel the Jamaican lady was speaking from her perspective. And she said what she said, based off of her experience.
I'm not trying to agree, but isn't that the problem, though? That if the minority's speaking for the majority, don't we got to do something about it and start pushing back? Kind of like what Chaotic said, like stop letting us be defined by the least amount of people.
And I'm not
have poor behavior. Go ahead.
Right, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but I also feel like we would be some fools and we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we do not take into consideration that the perception that it's had of us. Even as talking about with the neighborhood, why do people not want to live around Black people? I don't think white people are sitting around having this conversation in the opposite. It's us as Black people having the conversation. I don't think we can joke around and say, oh, white people are moving the neighborhood, a Starbucks is coming, a Whole Foods is coming. That means white people are coming, the property values are going to go up. It is the complete opposite when we move into a space. White people are having different types of conversation.
Okay.
Can I ask Alex a question real quick?
Yeah, and I got one more topic I want to hit. Go ahead, CT.
Alex, are you familiar with the inhabitants of Papua New Guinea?
No.
Okay. Or what about the Aborigine of Australia?
A little bit.
Okay. A lot of these people still live like it's the Stone Age, especially in Papua New Guinea. Do you respect their perspective as well of America as well?
What would their perspective be?
I don't know. I'm saying if they had a perspective of America, particularly American Blacks, would you say, you know what? That's their perspective. I respect what they have to say about American Blacks. Would you say that too about those people too?
Just because I respect it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to. Just because I agree with it doesn't mean I have to respect it. If that is what we are showing them, no different than if we are in another country and people are watching Black people on TV, and if all they're seeing that we are robbing, shooting, stealing, and we're only in these particular realms of work, that is their perception of Black people.
Even though those people are first of all, in Papua New Guinea, they live like it's a Stone Age. They kill each other left and right. They have no advanced infrastructure like we do. You're telling me as an American, you would really sit there and say, well, you know what? They do watch TVs of Black Americans. They have their perspective, and you respect that.
Yes, that is their perspective. That is what they're being shown.
Okay. Do you know what I think about people like that in third world countries?
What do you think, Adam?
You're lucky we don't have a drone over you right now.
Shit like that. Shit like that. Shit like that. Shit like that. Shit like that.
When has the conqueror, we are the conquerors, and we are allowing the weak people to literally dog our country into submission now? Do you know, and I'm going to go back to China, do you know that the Chinese government 2 days ago refused to meet with Lloyd Austin, who's Secretary of Defense, because that's how weak of a country we've got. Hemp, you know about this.
Yeah.
The Chinese government has refused to meet to talk about negotiations now in Singapore. Because that's how weak we are perceived as a nation state right now. We already got a senile president. We got a bimbo for a vice president. She talks to people like they're. Did you see her talk to the Howard basketball team? She was talking to them like they were 3-year-olds. So when people see, and we have a chief justice who doesn't know what a woman is. We have a weak government right now. We have a crime-ridden cities, and I cannot believe, Alex, what I'm hearing. You're siding with foreign.
And we out.
Thank you guys so much.